Beijing, China will host the 2022 Winter Olympic Games. And while China would like to have a strong showing, when it comes to certain winter sports like Nordic skiing and hockey, historically, China hasn't done very well.
But as Channel 2's Blake Essick explains, a recent agreement signed at the China-U.S. Governors Forum in Chengdu could change that. Blake.
Well, Mike, Rebecca, this past year at the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea, 20 athletes represented the United States Nordic ski team. 9 of them, including gold medalist Keegan Randall, are athletes at Alaska Pacific University. Between the months of August and October, the typical forecast in Beijing and across most of China is hot and humid. Great weather if you're planning to hang out at Tiananmen Square, play some music at Jingshan Park, or stretch your legs while enjoying a bird's eye view of the Forbidden City. But that very same weather can be a real challenge, especially your Chinese athlete training for the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics.
Do we still have the snow here in your resort?
Yes, 1,700 centimeters a year. A lot.
But there's a brand new solution now in the works.
The program's on the snow 11 months out of the year. The combination of the Anchorage area, Hatcher Pass, and Eagle Glacier training opportunities means that they're skiing a lot throughout the year. And that's a very unique training program, not only in Alaska, but in the world.
A newly developed partnership offering Chinese athletes a chance to train nearly 4,000 miles from home.
It's about relationships, and I think this is a critical time to start developing those relationships.
Robert Anders is the president of Alaska Pacific University. He recently traveled to China as part of Alaska's trade mission. His primary goal?
Their skiing depends on the snow.
To cultivate a mutually beneficial partnership between APU and China's Nordic skiing program.
A lot of other countries don't have that training facility for the summer months.
And it was a relationship that developed quickly on day 1 of the China-U.S. Governors Forum in Chengdu. A memorandum of agreement started the dialogue between Alaska Pacific University and the Healyjiang Provincial Sports Administration.
Yes, both of us feel just it's a big moment for the cooperation.
Talks that quickly led to a formal commitment. Only a few days later in Beijing.
Now, I'm definitely can assure you that we'll send our athletes to Alaska for the training.
An ongoing discussion of mutual opportunity with input from Governor Walker and Gao Zhangwen, the Minister of Sport and President of the Chinese Olympic Committee.
I believe that the cooperation exchange between our athletes and the state of Alaska can not only be just 1 year, but at least 5 years up to year 2022.
Smiles, very nice.
A long-term opportunity between Alaska and China, which could potentially result in a future expansion of APU's training facilities, and even offer APU's 2022 Olympic hopefuls a mutual opportunity to cross-train in China. An opportunity not just limited to Nordic skiing, but also for downhill skiers and China's Olympic hockey program.
I'm very interested in sending our team, which is not of a high level, to the state of Alaska to find a good training partner and find a good training situation to help them improve their skills.
A collaboration of nations, proving yet again the unifying power of sport to bridge cultural gaps and to potentially create many more Olympic medal careers, like 2018 gold medalist Keegan Randall.
Well, it was really fun for me to look back and think of my first year up here.
Jump-started on Alaska's slopes and glaciers. Now, while nothing is set in stone, APU President Robert Anders says a delegation of Chinese athletes and the Chinese Olympic Committee could be visiting Alaska here in the next few weeks to check out APU's facilities firsthand.
The Office of International Trade says last year alone, Alaska exported more than $1.3 billion worth of goods and services to China. The vast majority, roughly $1 billion, comes from the seafood industry. But that could change if Alaska's proposed LNG project comes to fruition, potentially increasing annual exports to China by about 10 times the current value. However, as KTUU's Blake Essick reports, there were no major LNG-related announcements or updates following Governor Walker's recent trade mission to the East Asian nation.
An LNG pipeline across Alaska. It's been talked about for decades, with some calling the project nothing more than a pipe dream. But the proposal has gained traction in recent years, due in large part to a relatively new partnership forged between the state of Alaska and China. China is a vibrant and memorable place. From dancing bears to street food
To try the scorpion.
that bites back.
Blake, I got you, buddy.
I like it more than I wanted to.
The stinger's delicious.
A cultural fusion of ancient traditions and modern-day advancements. But whether you're in Chengdu, Beijing, or Shanghai, those advancements have come at a cost.
You see people with the face masks.
The haze you see hanging over the city has nothing to do with the weather. It's caused primarily by coal.
This country is very serious about shifting a lot of its coal burning, which is about half the world's coal is consumed here. About 70% of their fuel for power gen is coal. They're very serious about shifting that to natural gas.
That shift includes a non-binding partnership with the state of Alaska, a joint development agreement signed last November between the Alaska Gas Line Development Corporation, the Chinese oil and gas company Sinopec, a Chinese investment company CIC Capital, and the Bank of China.
Sinopec will be the purchaser of LNG. Bank of China will be the lender to the project. And then CIC Capital would be the equity investor if they decide to invest.
As it stands now, development of the roughly $43 billion gas line project would guarantee China 75% of the pipeline's capacity for roughly 30 years. And while there is not yet a final guarantee on investment or development,
now it's really a matter of just paperwork.
Optimism abounds.
I put a very, very high probability on this project. I mean, in the 90s.
While Alaska and China acknowledge the partnership could be mutually transformational, at least publicly,
excellent cooperation.
Little progress has been made since the non-binding agreement was signed more than 6 months ago.
Not really new. It's just an evolving process. It's a big project, and everybody's sort of sorting out what their particular role specifically is going to be.
And despite recent one-on-one meetings, there were no new announcements, big or small, during the governor's trade mission to China.
And as everybody knows, that the AKLNG project is a highly capital-intensive project. And the construction might be very complicated.
But behind the scenes in Beijing, AGDC President Keith Meyer said communication remains strong.
Well, we've had really people on the ground here or them over in Alaska almost continuously without much of a break.
A breakthrough in talks could also lead to a break in pollution, cleaner skies, and a new way to energize China. And for Alaska, a brighter horizon in the state's fiscal outlook and the promise of a new economic future.
So a nonstop flight from Anchorage to Beijing is about 7.5 hours. Not bad, but unfortunately at this point that flight does not exist.
You have to go south to go north. So right now it takes about 15 hours of actual flight time in each direction. That's because you've got to stop over in Seattle, flying directly over Alaska on the way to and from China.
But as Channel 2's Blake Essig explains, nonstop flights connecting Alaska and China was a focus of the governor's recent trade mission to China.
Chengdu in the Sichuan province is famous for several reasons, including spicy food, a rich history, and of course, giant pandas.
Oh my goodness.
How far are you willing to travel to see one of these?
Look at his face.
Oh. For Governor Bill Walker.
Never seen pandas before.
The answer is about 5,000 miles.
I've seen polar bears and grizzlies and black bears, but I've never seen panda bears, so I'm broadening my bear horizon today.
Considered a national treasure, roughly 80% of the world's giant pandas live here in the Sichuan province, a species on the verge of extinction, which is why facilities like this in Chengdu exist.
Panda Base is a reserve center for giant panda, so we do a lot of job, including reproduction, breeding, and protection.
All right. Each year, about 4.8 million tourists visit the panda base in Chengdu. And on this day,
It's really cute. He is, and I think
there were about 50 Alaskans, including Julie Soppe with Visit Anchorage.
this is a red panda. And to me, they look more like raccoons, but all adorable.
While she encourages Alaskans to explore China, she's here to increase Chinese tourism into Anchorage. Interest, which has been gaining support in recent years.
I have seen is more and more people travel from Seattle to Alaska, and especially the Fairbanks and Anchorage. So I think in the future, there will be more and more people travel to there.
But in order for a nonstop flight between China and Alaska to become a reality, Chinese aviation representatives say market demand, government support, and whether or not it's a seasonal destination are all considerations. So for now,
really pretty colors. Beautiful, yeah.
Sopi continues to lobby for nonstop flight service.
Anytime you can reduce a barrier to travel, it makes a great big difference in our ability to market to new markets. And so for China to get direct air service, cutting anywhere from 6 to 12 hours off of somebody's flight time would be an amazing accomplishment.
An accomplishment which could bring more Alaskans to Beijing. Ideally, one flight and one chairlift.
No skis.
Connecting Alaskans to one of the 7 wonders of the world.
Built about 2,000 years ago, stretching more than 13,000 miles across northern China, the Great Wall is perhaps the most recognizable symbol of China's long and vivid history, one which attracts visitors from all over the world and could soon be about a 7.5-hour nonstop flight away from Alaska.
It's just unimaginable how this happened. Look at that. 13,000 miles.
That's Larry Cash. He's the CEO of RIM Architects based in Anchorage.
And just look at it. It's a gorgeous piece of our history, of the global history, of China's history, and the architecture is incredible.
An experience for the second time, which has left this architect with goosebumps. One which he hopes will someday be more easily accessible.
Going to see the wall. That 7.5-hour flight would be fantastic to open this up to many more people and to open Alaska up to many more visitors.
For now, the size, magnitude, and firsthand understanding of exactly how this wonder of the world could possibly have been built remains a mystery to many.
It gets up to like 20 meters high at some point, which I have no idea how they made that. It makes me kind of believe aliens are real.
As for Larry the architect,
real question, could you build this wall?
I could not build this wall, but I'm glad somebody did.
Go! Bye-bye.
So the lift is the easiest way to get up the mountain, the fastest and most fun way to get down the mountain, the sports slide. Reporting from the Great Wall of China at Mutanyu, I'm Blake Essen.
Great way to go down.
Cool.
Oh, that looks like a blast. Here in Alaska, seafood is our largest commodity, and China is our largest trading partner.
Now, just last year, the Alaska Office of International Trade says Alaska exported roughly $1 billion worth of seafood to the Far Eastern nation.
A big number, which Channel 2's Blake Essex says could be tripled in the future. Blake.
Well, Maria, Rebecca, tripling seafood exports to China was one of the governor's focal points of the recent trade mission to China. While it might seem ambitious, there are many different platforms popping up in China which could help Alaska achieve that goal. One of them is called HEMA.
The potential for this market is huge.
On the surface,
Both of them are from Alaska.
this may look like a normal grocery store. But for China, what you see is a brand new concept, a new retail experience by Alibaba, the Amazon of China, called HEMA.
Alibaba has a lot of promise for expanding the market.
One which blends online and offline.
Look at the black cod, pea cod.
Catering to the new Chinese consumer.
Product is very important to the Chinese consumer, that they understand where it came from, how fresh it is, and how to prepare it and how to enjoy it.
So how exactly does it work, and how can Alaska's seafood industry benefit?
So this here is our HEMA app. This is a way for the consumer to come into a store and shop, or even shop from anywhere they might be in the country. So if you're here in the store, for example, you would just touch here the reader. We'll pick it up, and it will instantly present to you that this is Alaskan cod. You can scroll through and find out, where it came from, how you might want to prepare it.
And if you don't want to come into the store, you can order online. And if you live within a few miles of the store, that food will be delivered to you within 30 minutes.
There's a full range of possibilities for the Chinese consumer, but the important thing is that we get it from Alaska to them fresh, whether they want it in our store or on their table.
While Alaska's seafood has been sold in China for decades, the big change came as a result of a recent twist in market demands.
To switch from kind of byproducts and H&G, wild Alaska pollock, pink salmon, all these products that were here for reprocessing to a consumer market has been, I think, the real prize, and it could triple in size pretty easily.
And while platforms like this,
the potential is enormous,
could be Alaska's gateway into China. Jeff Wellborn with Trident Seafood says there are some concerns when it comes to protecting what he calls the Alaska brand.
The Alaska brand has resonance over here, but like many things that come over here, if you don't protect and police it and kind of close ranks around what that means, you can lose the value of it. So whatever brand equity we are able to create as an industry or as a state is going to get to the point where you'll get a lot of imitators.
And that's the current challenge with China, figuring out a way to tap into its nearly 1.4 billion consumers, at the same time gaining momentum so Alaska's seafood is more than just a flash in the hot pot.
Right now, there are about 50 Hema supermarkets throughout China. In the future, Alibaba officials say they plan to expand that number to a couple thousand.